Hey everybody, this is Carl White broadcasting from the secret headquarters here in the Mortgage Market Animal / Freedom Club. You're listening to Loan Officer Freedom Podcast, number one podcast in North America today for loan officers. So you're listening to the right episode. If you want to see how we use loan officer assistants, or sometimes called production partners, loan officer assistants, we're going to talk a little bit about how we use them in my own personal branch. And I thought, who better to help prescribe this out than the guy that orchestrated most of this was actually my boss. And no, it's not the lovely Mrs. White. That's my other boss. This is the guy that owns the company that I'm a branch manager at. So I think I made it clear through the years. I don't have any ownership in the company. I'm a branch manager, just like many of you are. And we were going through Kevin and I. His name's Kevin Broughton in Plymouth, Michigan. Good to see you, Kevin.
Hey, Carl. How are you, my friend?
Good, brother. Well, so Kevin and I were sitting here doing some training videos for some of the support help in our office, and we're going over our loan officer assistant program, describing it to our new employees. And I thought, man, that would be a great podcast episode. So the purpose of doing this one is for you to see kind of what we're doing, and then swipe our ideas and take it in over to your company wherever you guys are at. And if you're doing it in a different way, man, I'd love you to reach out to me and tell me what you're doing that's better than the way we're doing it. If you're doing it a better way. So we're just going to do a very candid, open conversation, totally non-scripted, because we just decided like 2 minutes ago to hit the record button. And hopefully I think this will actually be a pretty cool thing, because we get a lot of questions about this. So Kevin, one thing that and again, the purpose of this is to grab these ideas and implement them in the company where you're currently at, right? That's the whole purpose of this. So Kevin, we have this loan partner program. I think the biggest, like everybody, so there's two issues. Number one is loan officers have to have an assistant to chase the bank statements and pay stubs and things like that. And I think everybody knows that. But I think the real problem is twofold. Number one, when do I get one? As soon as you're closing 8, as soon as you're closing 10, as soon as you're doing this, then we'll get it. And then the second problem is, well, I know I need one. Now I need to find one. And so now we've got a salesperson has to take off their sales hat, put on a human resource hat, figure out, how do I hire somebody? How do I interview them? What do I even ask them? And then I got to train them on what to do. And so we have found a better way, haven't we?
We have. And just quick, two things first. Carl's always kind, but I'm not Carl's boss. I work for Carl in my mind every morning, so not vice versa. Number two, I've never been live on Facebook till today, so thank you for indoctrinating me into this format. Yeah, Carl, the truth is this, you and I sat here about 10 years ago, and you introduced this entire concept to me, and it was foreign to our company. We had no loan partners at the time. We didn't know what one was, and it took me back to our most important conversation you and I have ever had. And that was the triad of awesomeness. And as I sat back and thought of something, I've known thousands of loan officers throughout my day, and spent most of my professional life earning a paycheck only if a result was attained, just like every loan officer listening, every branch manager on this call. And I thought, when are loan officers most happy? And the answer I came up with, that I think is still true today as it was 10 years ago, is when they're doing things that they love, when they're doing things that they're great at, and when they're making money. And that's when they're happy. So why wouldn't we design a platform where loan officers can spend the vast majority of their working hours per week doing only things that they love, that they're great at, and that make them money? And that's the definition of the triad of awesomeness. And so we hired our first loan partner about 10 years ago, and now we have over 100 loan partners at the company, and every loan officer gets one. But that does not solve the problem exclusively. That is certainly a great first step to solving the problem, but that's not the exclusive problem. And you hit it on the head. if you think back to many people we know, they've gone to their company or their branch manager or their boss or something and said, I need help. And many times you've heard them say, oh, you can only get help if you close 8 in a month, 3 months in a row, or you can only get this if you do that. And then they finally cave in and say, okay, fine. And it's most times because they're sick of hearing that the person needs help. They say, go ahead. But then that creates a whole host of new problems, because what are they going to do? Go run an ad on Indeed or on ZipRecruiter or on Monster and get 106 resumes, of which maybe 103 of them are not qualified. And they're going to spend hours upon hours interviewing and reading resumes and conducting DISC assessments. And then they hire someone. They're not necessarily, top producers aren't necessarily the best at hiring, firing, training, mentoring, holding accountable, those types of things. And then they make the wrong hire. And then most loan officers are nice. So they say, I'm going to let this person stay on board because they might change their ways, even if they know they're not the right fit. It's just inefficient, right?
Yeah.
Because we're putting people in a position to fail, to do things that they don't historically have a great track record of doing. And so we decided to take a different route. We decided to create an internal format where we hired and fired and trained and held accountable. And the loan originator did not have to do those jobs. Some of our people at our company do hire and fire and train and mentor their own loan partners because that's their choice. But for those that don't want that, we'll provide those services for them. And I think that's pretty important, because a loan partner's job is to create more revenue producing activity hours for the loan originator. That's the job. And each time a person trying to earn $200 an hour through sales is spending hours chasing page 4 of the Wells Fargo bank statement, it's robbing them of the ability to do the revenue producing activities. Would you agree?
100%.
And then you got the start and stop problem, I call it. And I think this is not discussed enough in our industry. And I think it's a tremendous detriment to many people in our industry. But if you were sitting there from 11 a.m. till 1:30, figuring out and in a stressful situation about the Smith file, are you ready to prospect at 1:31? You're not. You're not in the right mental frame of mind after dealing with a 2.5-hour loan minutia problem to then pick up the phone and say, hi, Mrs. Smith, you and I haven't talked in 6 months. And I was just, in doing our hit on our database, our Thor's hammer, our things of that nature. You have to be mentally prepared for that. So we've believed that it's our job as a company to design a platform where it's not never that the loan officer has to get involved, but we want to minimize those hours, and we want them to trust the process and trust the people that are helping them so they have a free mind to go do the revenue producing activities. You can't sit fully engaged with a realtor for 2 hours if your phone's blown up every 15 minutes about the Jones file, the Franklin file, and the Johnson file, correct?
Yeah. And, I think another thing that I have found is that when we started doing the loan officer assistant model is like if you don't currently have an assistant, man, make sure you really need to get one, because what will happen is, let's say it basically is what you just said, Kevin, is that if I'm dealing with issues, if I'm the one that's dealing with the appraisals, the appraisal's not in yet, or the page 3 of the bank statement, and then I'm getting ready to go make a prospecting phone call, even though my wallet says I want another deal, my brain says, God knows I don't need any more headaches. Let's just kind of do a so-so job at trying to get this next mortgage, because I've already got 4 other deals that I'm having to chase conditions and put out fires, or 24 other deals, or 44, whatever that number is. And it takes a little gas out of our fuel tank, and almost puts us like in a negative frame of mind, that even if the front part of our brain says, let's go get more loans, the back part of our brain, which is what actually controls us, says, whoa down, Carl, slow. I'm here to protect you. We don't need any more loans because we don't need any more paperwork to be chasing, because the lovely Mrs. White was not real happy when I didn't make it home for dinner 3 nights last week. And I think that's the biggest poison of not having the assistance, is the poisoning of the mind that says more loans equals more work. And that does not have to be that way.
If you knew how many times I heard that per week, you'd fall off your chair. I hear that every single week with someone that I'm on the phone, every week of my life. And I think there's a better way. And I think that you can implement this better way wherever you work. If you're in alignment with your executive team and your management team, right? You need alignment because everyone's got to be firing on all 8 cylinders at the same goal, or it's not going to work if there's a weak link in that chain, right? Yeah. But I think one of the challenges too that come with the whole assistant, loan partner, whatever you choose to call it, is there's an economic reality too, and that can't be ignored. And I think that's a challenge that I hear about all the time. And sometimes people want the loan partner assistant to do everything. And sometimes it's tough to afford that if the revenue from the loan originator's deals aren't high enough to support that service. And so, like at our place, based on, if you do a lower amount of units per month, the loan partner does everything contract to close, where it's still the loan originator's job to do the things necessary from lead to contract. And yet there's many people at our organization that have both sides covered because they do, we have one gal at our office that closed 60 some odd units last month. And of course, she has front end loan partners and back end loan partners. But again, I think that can be designed individually based on what the loan originator likes to do. But we can't forget about the economic component to this, because I've tried, but I've yet to find any of these loan partners that want to come to work for free, and
so in other words, like if I'm closing, like, say 3 loans a month, well, I don't need a whole bunch of front end help. When we say front end, we're talking about lead to contract. In other words, I get a lead in, I'm closing 3 loans a month. I've got plenty of time to call that lead. I got plenty of time to call that application. I got plenty of time to call and introduce myself to the listing agent and buying agent. And then once I get the contract in, then I would get help at that point with the closing conditions, meeting the steps, with the pay stubs and the bank statements and the W-2s and things of that nature. Whereas if I'm closing, and this is no set number, but if I'm closing 10 loans a month, I might need a little bit more help on the front end, and I might need somebody to help me take an application from time to time. But
think of the difference in revenue when you're closing 10 loans, not only for your personal pocket, but for the organization too. It's significantly more revenue that gives them more resources to be able to afford the second person, or to turn the first person into a hybrid where they can do both, but it's all a function of revenue derived from the loans and how many units you're doing too. It can't be ignored on that level.
Which I think brings up kind of another point. So people say, well, Carl, should I share my assistant? And, for me, I think that answer is, well, it depends on what your volume is. Again, you want to go over that a little bit, Kevin?
Sure. It all depends, again, on each organization's different. And we try to be as efficient as possible, right? Imperfectly efficient. But we manage by matrices, and we know how many units a properly trained loan partner can still provide level 10 service and get closed. So if that number on a particular person happens to be 12 to 14, and you have 4 loan officers that historically close 3 loans a month, then yes, that one loan partner should be able to adequately assist 4 loan officers. Obviously, if someone's closing 12 units a month themselves, then they should not be sharing, and so it all is a function of a combination of revenue and units and volume and efficiencies, because it's largely inefficient if you pay some of these people are very well paid and do a very great job. And if they're sitting there and only closing 3 units a month, the cost per closed loan is just far too high to not have it impact the interest rate and the loan officer's commission check and all these other things that matter too. So you have to be careful and you have to be smart about it. But I do think sharing is a mandate based on volume.
Yeah, I think it, because again, if I'm closing 3 loans a month, which, hey, we all started at 0.
Of course, right.
We're not picking on the 3 loans per month. Everybody was there, like 100% of us. But if when I'm at 3 loans a month, I don't need a full-time assistant. They have plenty of extra time. And unless I'm going to quote rates that are so high that's generating such high revenue, and then I'm pricing myself out of the market. And again, I just don't need a full time. That as I'm ramping up, then they start doing more and more and more to me. But my argument, and I know Kevin, you agree with this 100%, that even somebody at 3 loans a month, having an assistant on the backside, in other words, like once a contract comes in and helping with the pay stubs and the bank statements and chasing conditions, that should happen like on day one, even with like 3-4 loans a month. I believe that's absolutely the case. And I think if you're doing your own processing, it's costing you a fortune to do that. Because some people might say, well, it saves me a little money if I do my own processing or I've got time to do it. That's a horrible thing. Not maybe that's a strong word, but maybe it's not. It's a horrible activity because it's robbing you of prospecting for that next deal. Like what activity did you do that brought in that last loan for you to process? Figure out what that activity was and go do that again and again and again and again and again. It's not about doing like 1,000 different things. It's about finding one thing that brings in your loans and just go do more of that and less of all the support stuff. It keeps that loan officer roller coaster, up a month, down a month, up a month, down a month. We find the assistant.
And you think about it, Carl, why are salespeople the highest paid people in the world in a lot of companies, right? Because it's arguably the hardest job. And so I think sometimes there's a catch-22 to that. I've got some great examples. I have 2 women that come to mind right away in our organization that made a large sum of money, a very large sum of money this past year. And they had the same number of hours in the year as those that made less, right? They can't buy more hours with their money, can they?
No.
And so you think about what's the difference? Well, the difference is in those 2 particular instances, both of them spent way more hours per week only doing revenue producing activities. And they're both laser focused ladies, like incredibly focused at not doing things that someone else can do 90% as well for far fewer dollars. That's what they don't do. And so I think that is where this whole loan partner thing germinated from, is how do we create an environment where loan originators can go out and originate? And sometimes it's hard to originate, right? It's hard to pick up that phone. That phone can get heavy. Some of those calls, I've made Thor's Hammers calls for many, many Mondays, right? Just like you have, and almost everyone tuning into this has. And that's not the easiest thing to do in life, right? I think sometimes loan originators opt to stay in the deal because that's actually easier. Even though it's more annoying, it's easier than sometimes doing the revenue producing activities. So that's where I think that where you said earlier about clearing the mind and being focused and being ready to prospect matters. And it's harder to do that when you're stuck in the deal. So I just think that this is the most important year many of us have seen in a long time to be focused on doing the revenue producing activities and having a support team to do many of the other functions. But like you said, there's 168 work hours in a month. If you're closing 2 to 3 loans, you should be doing some of the front end work yourself. Why not? Right? It's not that many hours. There still leaves plenty of time to do your prospecting as well. And but once that contract comes in, to have someone talented that can handle everything through the closing should help you a lot. And it does help a lot of people a great deal. So
yeah, because when we bring a loan in, it creates a whole new set of activities that need to be done by somebody.
Absolutely.
And when we're doing that activities, the stuff required to close a loan, we're not doing the very activity that brought the loans to come in the first place. So we can only be doing one thing at a time. And right. So you're doing loan getting stuff, or you're doing loan closing stuff. And we found that getting assistance works really, really, really well to keep the loan officer sales force out there selling and not chasing page 3 of the bank statement. So let's talk just for a few minutes to our branch managers who might be listening to this. So if you're a branch manager and you've and it took me a little while to wrap my head around this. But if you're a branch manager, and the biggest fear of a branch manager, Kevin, is I go get my loan officer an assistant, and I've now incurred more overhead. And I live here in the Clearwater Beach, Tampa Bay area. And so the loan officer now goes, awesome. I got somebody chase page 3 of the bank statement. I'm going to go down to the beach Wednesday afternoon at 1 o'clock and, catch some waves. Right.
Yeah.
So that's a branch manager's worst, that's their worst nightmares, including or having increased overhead and no increase in revenue. And so I think, for for the branch managers, I think it's okay to give them a quota. Like if you're going to, if you're going to provide an assistant and they haven't had one in the past, you will make more money. And it's okay to give them a little bit of a quota. Like let's say if they're closing, again, we've been picking on the 3 loans per month person. If you're closing 3 loans per month, and now you're going to give them an assistant, tell them, hey, like if I was talking to you, so I'm branch manager and you're loan officer Kevin. I say, well, loan officer Kevin, if I give you this assistant, you're currently closing 3. Do you think it'd be realistic if I take away all the activity that you were doing once the contract comes in? So all the pay stubs and bank statements and all that stuff, we're going to totally take off your plate so you can go out and make more loans come in. Would it be safe to say, Kevin, that we could expect you to go from 3 loans a month to 6 months to 6 loans a month in the next 90 days? And if you think, well, all that activity that you were doing, now if you spend that same activity prospecting, going out and get the next deal, dude, close an extra 3 loans in 90 days is like the biggest no-brainer ever. And that'll make so for the branch managers, give the loan officers a quota. Now for the loan officers, when you go to your branch manager and ask for help and they say, hey, I need you to be closing 8 loans a month first, and then I'll get you assistant, just do it in reverse. So like, Kevin, if you're my branch manager and I come to you and I say, hey, Kevin, I really appreciate you. Loan officer Carl here. I really appreciate you. You're an awesome branch manager. And brother, you've given me an incredible platform and you help me make good money. And I really appreciate you. And sometimes I go home at the end of the day, Kevin, thinking, how can I make branch manager Kevin even more money? Just in gratitude, I want to make you even more money. And I came up with something, Kevin. If I had an assistant to take care of the pay stubs and the bank statements and the chasing the conditions, I could spend more time in the loan getting activity, doing that very activity that brings us in more loans, which would make you more money. So Kevin, do you trust me, Kevin?
I do.
So now if Kevin would have said no there, I either have to assess my relationship with Kevin, or maybe I've given him a reason not to trust me, right? I mean, and so I need to take a good reflection on myself. 99 times out of 100, they're going to say, yeah, I trust you. Kevin, would you trust me for 90 days that get me some help? And while the assistant is doing the pay stubs and bank statements, I'm going to be doing loan getting activity. I'm going to be calling my past database. I'm going to be doing Tuesday updates on the files I currently have, asking for more referrals from those people, from the listing agent, the buying agent, the borrower, the co-borrower. I'm going to be calling on real estate agents that I've worked with in the past that I haven't heard from for a little while. I'm going to do some coffee appointments. I'm going to do all these loan getting activities, or whatever that is for you as you're listening today. Maybe it's social media, like whatever that was. You're going to do more of that because now the assistant's going to be doing all the back end stuff. So Kevin, I think with that in place, I can go from closing my 3 loans a month to 6 loans a month in the next 90 days. And Kevin, if I don't make that happen in 90 days, brother, you can take that assistant, use them on somebody else, let them go, like whatever, and I'll never bug you about it again. But I'd like to make you more money, Kevin. Is that a good plan? Would you help me make you more money?
A great pitch.
Yeah,
great
and
pitch.
that's the bottom line. And it gives the branch manager an argument that I'm not doing it. Hey, Kevin, I want to take more time off. Like, even though you and I are buddies, you don't care about them. Not that you don't care about it, but if you're getting ready to buy me an assistant, you're more worried about your P&L, your bottom line.
Well, that's what you see, Carl. And I deal with this every day with people that don't work at my place. I hear this every day. And that's right there, the catch-22 that you just referenced, because on the flip side of that conversation, that was very eloquently presented by you, and I'd go for it if I were in the shoes we were both sitting in. But on the branch manager side, what most of them are saying is this: hey, we're living in a world of condensed margins. There's less money in a mortgage today than there was a year ago today. you're asking me to bring on a $50,000, $60,000 expense on the if come that you're going to do what you say. And some people are able to do what you just said and have it come true, and some aren't. And if you're in the camp that can't increase their closed loan production, even with the newfound time and everything, then it is truly just an additional expense to the branch manager. So that's what they're weighing out on every one of those conversations. But you've heard me talk about the word alignment 100 times. And that's where I believe alignment is so important. If the branch manager is bought into the loan originator's dream as well, and believes and trusts that they are actually going to take those newfound hours and do that, then it probably is the best investment the branch manager ever made. If they don't believe, then they probably think it's a horrible investment. And so I think it's what you said. It's trust, it's transparency, it's being forward and upfront about the truth. And you and I know tons of loan officers, tons that have grown their business exponentially because they've had the time to do so, and they're talented as hell, and they're great at sales, and they're great at referability, and they know exactly how to get an end result, and they have grown their business significantly. We have tons of examples of that, and those are the best bets any company ever made, is getting them help because they did it. And then there's obviously the risk side of it. Some of the people are going to say they're going to do it, and they're not going to do it. And then, but that's risk, right? Everyone that's in business knows there's risk every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's a great pitch if you're a loan officer, if you'll actually do what you said. And I've been hanging around the Freedom Club for the better part of 10 years now. I don't know one person, and I'm not kidding about this. I know 0 people that have implemented your tools, tips, and strategies for real and not done better. I don't know anyone. So it's proof in the pudding that doing the stuff you teach and talk about works. It's just making a commitment to doing it and having a vision and alignment with your team around what the mission is and what the goals are, and we're going to achieve them together. And when you do that, you should be able to get, one of the gals at my office has 8 helpers now, that work just for her.
8 loan partners.
She didn't start, 8 overall helpers. They do a variety of different jobs, but she didn't start with 8. She started with none. And she was everything the first year. She worked 365 days a year in that first year. But she built it to a place where now she pretty much does whatever she wants to, whenever she wants to, and her business still thrives every single month. And, but you grow into that. And if you are in alignment with the people providing the resources to pay for that growth, it's a great deal. So I think that's very important too, being in alignment with your management.
Yeah. And I would say another thing for the branch managers, for whatever you do, like when they come and ask for help, don't just say, awesome, go get one. And, we just need to do a background check, of course, right? When you do a background check and you go find them, we'll do the background check, make sure everything's okay. And then you can hire, we can hire them. Don't do that. Because one thing, and Kevin, I know you said, you talked about this in the beginning. I just want to make sure everybody caught this. We find that the salespeople do not make great HR people. Just like if you think of the human resource part of your company, if you used to say, all right, all of you guys and gals come out of there and put your sales hat on, and you're now our sales team, it probably wouldn't work out so well. Neither would all the loan officers to become the HR team, right? It's just not going to work. It's not their gift, right? It's not better, not worse, just it's different. It's a different skill set. And so if you tell your loan officer, go out, go find your help, they're, number one, the time they're doing that, they're not out still making loans come in. So it's costing you and them a fortune. So what you need to do, you need to have a system set up where you go hire that person for them. And they might do the final interview to make sure they're a good match or something like that.
Of course.
But you go find that person and then you train that person, because you don't want the loan officer training that person, because while they're training, then the loan officer's not doing loan getting activity. They're too busy training.
Right.
They can't show them a little bit of, the fine tuning stuff, but the vast majority of it needs to be somebody that's been doing it before. You find them for them, put them in that loan officer. I got a question for you, Kevin. How important do you think it is that the loan partner is under the same roof as the loan officer?
In most instances, I don't feel it's important. I think we've proved that, and I'm coming from the camp where I used to think it was incredibly important, and I've changed my viewpoint since March 13th of 2020.
Yeah.
we're coming up on 22 months where I'm sure it's true at 100 other companies as well as it's true at ours. We doubled in production, improved. We could produce a quality result, and nobody came to work for a long time. Now we have some people back in now, but nowhere near the whole group yet. And so it can be done remotely. I know that for a fact. And I was a believer that everyone had to sit in the same room and you had to be, interactive physically to talk about this Smith deal and the Jones deal. But that's really not the case. I think you can absolutely do it remotely.
Yeah, one thing I found about doing it remotely is it gives us a better talent pool to choose from. So if I'm just picking in my one small area, I might not have a lot to pull from. But if I'm picking the entire United States,
a whole different ballgame.
Yeah,
whole different ballgame.
In between Zoom and Skype and all the other office meetings, and dude, you and I meet up like, I don't know, at least once a week and probably a couple times a week doing a Zoom like this. And even though I have to say it's not quite as good as having you sitting around the fire pit,
I'd rather be at your house, but this is a close second.
It's pretty close. So if you're listening to this on the podcast, we're doing a Zoom meeting and just recording it. So that works well. So I think we pretty much covered everything. So don't have the loan officer hiring their own assistant. Do it for them.
Manage that person for them. Hold that person accountable. Have service level agreements that are real and that have accountability around them, and have consequences if certain things aren't met.
That's a great point. We tend not to be great managers. I know I'm not, because salespeople are so optimistic. And when somebody's not working out, I always go, well, maybe it's my fault. I didn't train him enough. I didn't train her enough, or I haven't spent enough time with him, or like somehow it's always about, a couple more months and he'll come around. And, we're just optimistic people. And so I found it better. So in my own little world over here, they fired me from that position, and somebody else is in charge of everybody. And it works out just so much better. And like you said, hold them accountable that, it doesn't work out as well and again, if I'm doing that, I'm not doing the loan getting activity. Right. So office managers come way cheaper than loan officers do.
And I think back, and you taught me this again, and you kind of harp on me about this, and I'm grateful for that. But I look back at each time that I've been successful and each time that I haven't, because I sure as heck have had my, ups and downs and what have you. But every time I've been successful for prolonged periods of time, it's always the result of one thing. I've been laser focused at staying in my lane and doing revenue producing activities 4 to 12 hours a day. That's what I do. And every time I look back at periods of time where I've been unsuccessful, I've been unfocused, I've been out of my lane, I've been doing 6 jobs, I've been wearing hats in areas that I'm not good at. And it's so predictable. It's so predictable. And so much like you, I'm terrible at what you just said. And you got fired from your job of doing that. So did I. And I manage one person now. He's sitting in this chair right now. And I've paid a lot of people to manage people. And I don't like doing it. I'm not great at it. And it doesn't drive my economic engine. So if it falls outside of all 3 concentric circles, why the hell am I doing it? And it's so crystal clear why we're profitable and why we're not. And I think I urge everyone listening to this, take an introspective look at those 3 circles. And are you spending 90+% of your work hours in the shaded area? You either are or you aren't. There's no fooling anybody,
I know we need to wrap that. Dude, I can talk to you all day. We one of the questions I always ask everybody on our live events, usually on the first hour, is like, everybody write down, what's the number one thing that makes you most your money? What's the one single activity you do that makes you most your money? And there's no right or wrong answer, right? It's whatever the answer is for them, right? And some will say referral partner meetings, and some will say Facebook, and some will say teaching classes, and like whatever that thing is. And then I say, all right, how many hours, minutes, if any, did you spend doing that specific activity last week? And the average answer is goose egg, 0. I spent 0 hours doing my number one thing that makes me most of my money last week. And it's simply because they don't have an assistant in place. They're out chasing page 3 of the bank statement, figuratively speaking. And we found that getting our loan officers away from doing that activity, it's really, really helpful. And then they're not as frustrated either. And so they make more money. The branch manager makes more money because they're doing more production, and the loan officers are working less hours, and they're not frustrated, so they have less burnout. And it's just a really, really, really good model. So we strongly recommend it. So Kevin, I think we pretty much got everything here. So man, if you're listening to this today, take this information and use it wherever you're at. And hopefully we've said something here today that can help you out. Kevin, is there anything that I missed? Something I should have asked you that I didn't?
No, I think we were pretty much covered everything that you had wanted to.
All right, cool. Hey, gang. Well, thanks again. We appreciate you listening to the episode. We always appreciate those 5-star reviews. In fact, if you go listen to, if you do a review, right, I'm going to give you an ethical bribe that if you'll do a review and then take a picture of it and then send it to us at support@themarketinganimals.com, support@themarketinganimals.com. I'll send you a hard copy of my newest book called Loan Officer Champions. It's where we interviewed 10 of the top producing loan officers that have all their own separate challenges, very, very, very different people. And the idea is that one of these people, I bet when you're reading their story, you'll be able to identify and you'll see how they overcame their challenges. And it's really like a small town boy, girl makes good story, like a hero's journey kind of thing of just remarkable stories of some of these loan officers and how they overcame it. And I think you'll benefit from it just as much as I did, frankly, listening and doing these interviews to write this book. But I'll mail you a free copy, completely free, no shipping or anything, just by you posting an honest review. And whether it's a 1-star or 5-star, you're going to get the book. Obviously, we prefer the 5 stars, but all we're looking for is just an honest review. And email a picture of it to support@themarketinganimals.com, support@themarketinganimals.com, and we'll send you a copy of Loan Officer Champions. I know I'm never supposed to give 2 call to actions at the same time, but hey, if you need any help on how do we hire people and who does what and what does a loan officer do, what does a loan partner do, we're happy to help you with that too. We'll show you exactly what we do, again, so you can take it and put back into your own shop, because we put this together, frankly, from me and Kevin and a handful of us hanging out with other branch managers with other companies and seeing what they do. That's in the Freedom Club, seeing what they do. And we just kind of take the best of what we were doing and the best of what other people are doing and put together this model. And man, it's working pretty good these days. It's working pretty good these days. So we'd be happy to share the model with you. And so if you go to loanofficerstrategycall.com, loanofficerstrategycall.com, it'll just kind of ask you a little bit about what your team looks like now. It'll help us prepare for the call. And then we'll do a 45-minute one-on-one strategy call, and we'll show you how we hire the people, what website we go to find them. We'll actually give you the ads that we place so you can place them on your own. Like any from soup to nuts, we'll help you do that. Absolutely no charge. So, all right, that's my 10-minute close there, Kevin. So, dude, I love you, man. You're just an awesome dude. I really appreciate you. Man, I would not be here today if it wasn't for you, Kevin. I'm just so grateful the day we met about 10 years ago. And I'm always looking forward to spending time with you. And you're just one really, really smart dude. And you're just a good guy, man. I love you.
I love you too. Right back at you. And you know what, you've made a difference in my life. You already know, I don't have to say it. So thank you.
All right. Thanks again, everybody. We appreciate it. And go get some help. You deserve it. It's your turn now. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.